The first warning came as a tremor under Corporal Jace Rennick's boots, faint but unnatural. In the ruins of Kael'thara Prime, the once glittering jewel of the Zalari Dominion, the only things that should have been moving were dust and the bones of the fallen. He stopped mid-step, his rifle lowering as his eyes swept the scorched corridor. The rest of his unit had moved on, combing the underground palace for survivors or salvage. Jace lingered, drawn by a flicker, an echo, no, a faint cry. Childlike. He shouldn't have followed it. He knew that. Every protocol said so. But he did. He stepped through the twisted frame of what was once an ornate door and into a collapsed nursery cloaked in golden dust. The silence here was heavy, too heavy. Then it came again, a whimper, so soft it could have been mistaken for memory. Jace moved fast, pulling debris aside, hand steady on his rifle. And then, from under a shattered column, a movement. Pale eyes stared up at him, huge and terrified. A child. No older than 4 human years, skin like polished pearl, ears long and pointed like a blade, clothed in tattered ceremonial silk. Zalari. Royal. Jace's training screamed *hostile star. But her eyes didn't hold hate. They held fear. Desperation. He reached down. She recoiled. Hey. It's okay, he murmured, setting his rifle aside, both hands open. I'm not gonna hurt you. I promise. She trembled, then leaned forward. Just enough. Enough to trust. He lifted her gently, her body feather-light, but clinging like she knew he was her last hope. Jace keyed his comm. Command, this is Corporal Rennick. I've got a living Zalari child. No threats. Repeat, she's alive. Civilian. What are your orders? Static. Then, negative, Corporal. No retrieval. You're ordered to leave the anomaly and exfil immediately. She's a kid, he argued. This is not a debate. Jace looked at the girl. She gripped his flak vest, eyes wide with silent terror. His team wouldn't understand. Command had no soul. He cut the comm. We're doing this my way. He wrapped her in his cloak and moved. Through smoke-filled tunnels. Past fallen comrades. Past ancient murals depicting 1,000 years of royal rule, now reduced to rubble. He made it to the evac zone just before the window closed. No questions asked, no time for them. Just a grunt from the pilot and a lift-off. Back on the Artemis *, he hid her in his quarters. A breach of a dozen regulations. But he couldn't leave her. Not after seeing those eyes. She didn't speak, just observed. Always watching. On day 3, she offered him something, a small pendant she'd hidden in her sleeve. Gold, with a glowing blue crystal at the center. Family, she whispered. The first word. He almost cried. Word got out, as it always does. Officers came knocking. Threats followed. Court-martial. Dishonor. Imprisonment. He gave them all the same answer, over my dead body. One night, an alarm rang out. Red lights. Infiltration. Zalari forces had breached the outer hull. How? The war was over. They'd lost. Jace grabbed his rifle, bolted for the panic room where he'd left her. But before he reached it, the door exploded open. And standing in the smoke, wearing gold-plated armor like a storm wrapped in sunlight, was her. The child in his arms looked at her. Eyes wide. Mama. Jace froze. The Queen's gaze locked with his. Unreadable. Ageless. Terrifying. Then, softening, just slightly, she stepped forward. Her daughter wriggled free and ran to her. Jace raised his weapon instinctively. No need, she said, voice smooth like silk but crackling with power. He hesitated. You're not here for war. I'm here, for my daughter. She knelt, embracing the girl. Jace watched, unsure if he just handed humanity its end or prevented it. Then she looked at him again. You saved her. I didn't do it for politics. I did it because she's a kid. A slow smile. Cold and calculating, but sincere. And yet you did more than any of your kind. You saw her. Jace remained silent. I am not here to take her and leave, she continued. I am here to offer you something. A bond. A role. A place beside me. Excuse me? You rescued the heir to the Zalari Dominion. That is not a debt we take lightly. Jace scoffed. What are you saying? I'm saying, she stood tall, regal, you are now part of this family. Should you accept? He blinked. You're offering me adoption? No. I am offering you power. A throne. Protection. A bond beyond race or war. My daughter chose you first. That matters. His world tilted. Everything he knew, his chain of command, his duty, earth it blurred. All that remained crystal clear were those eyes. The child's. And in them, he saw something worth more than loyalty. Worth more than orders. He didn't speak. He just nodded. The queen extended her hand. He took it. And the stars shifted course. They arrived at the capital city of Lysthara aboard a royal cruiser that moved like a gliding cathedral of stars. Jace stood in silence as the ship pierced clouds of silver mist and descended onto towers that twisted like vines into the heavens. This wasn't Earth. This wasn't war-torn Kael'thara either. This was the heart of the Zalari Empire, untouched by ash or grief. Every instinct in Jace screamed that he didn't belong here. He walked beside the queen, her daughter clinging to his arm, her tiny fingers looped around his thumb as if she'd known it all her life. Guards in glimmering armor watched him. Citizens in long, elegant robes stared, whispering in hushed tones, confusion etched into every stare. A human. Here. He didn't understand their language, but he understood their fear. The queen led him into a domed council chamber lit by orbs of floating blue fire. Ancient beings surrounded the circular dais, advisors, judges, warriors. One had translucent skin with veins that shimmered like galaxies. Another had no eyes, only pulsating orbs of light. And all of them turned to face him. This is madness, one hissed in Zalari. The translator embedded in Jace's collar whispered the words into his ear. He is an outsider, another snapped. A soldier of Earth. The queen raised her hand and silence obeyed. He is the one who carried my child through fire. He stood against his own to shield her. He is no outsider. The debate spiraled, but she was unshaken. Her voice never rose. Her gaze never faltered. Jace said nothing. He didn't need to. The girl at his side held his hand tighter. That was the only argument he had. Eventually, the queen ended it. The blood debt has been honored. By ancient right, I grant him status beyond kin. Let the mark be given. Gasps. Then the sound of 1,000 ceremonial staffs striking the floor. Jace was ushered to the center. From above, a hovering drone descended, carrying a needle of light. Wait, he said. What is that? A symbol, the queen replied. One that will never be removed. You will be recognized, anywhere, as housebound. He swallowed hard. The girl looked at him with a smile. He nodded. Pain flared on his forearm as the mark was burned into his skin. It didn't brand him like Earth's military tattoos. It felt alive. Like the star metal itself whispered. Afterward, they gave him quarters in the Queen's palace. He didn't sleep that night. He stared at the mark. The next morning, his real education began. Not in battle. Not in politics. In trust. The girl, Alira, wasn't just a princess. She was the oracle child. Born once every 10,000 years among the Zalari. Gifted with vision. Her dreams shaped policy. Her words shaped destiny. And she refused to speak to anyone but him. It became an issue. The palace healers tried to intervene. Alira screamed when they entered. Scholars offered teachings. She turned away. But when Jace spoke, she listened. She even laughed. Soon, he wasn't just her guardian. He was her translator to the world. He learned of the galaxy's fractures, how factions splintered after the Zalari loss. How enemies once dormant were stirring. And one in particular had a name, the Krev. Artificial. Ruthless. Silent. Machines birthed in the void, harvesting worlds, feeding on memory itself. Where they passed, nothing remained. They were coming. Alira's dreams had seen it. But the council would not act. Not yet. Not unless her visions could be clarified. Validated. So Jace trained. Not with weapons, though he never set his rifle far aside. He trained in Zellari memory arts. Learned their gestures, their history, their fears. Not to be one of them. But to be *close enough. Weeks turned into months. He grew into a symbol. Some adored him, saw him as the Queen's chosen. Others hated him, an alien sitting where heroes once stood. And amid all of it, something changed. The Queen. She spoke to him more often, in private. Not as ruler, but as someone curious. Their talks moved from politics to philosophy. From duty to sorrow. One night, she asked him, "Do you miss Earth?" "Sometimes," he answered. "Why did you do it?" "Save her, I mean." He looked at the stars beyond her balcony. "Because she was scared. And I was tired of leaving people behind." She was quiet for a long time. "Would you leave us?" "If you told me to. And if I told you to stay. Then I'd ask what you really wanted." She smiled. And something unspoken passed between them. The next morning, alarms shattered the stillness. The Krev had arrived. A probe destroyed a listening post 3 light-years from Lysthara. No message. Just silence. The council finally convened. Battle plans were drawn. Evacuation protocols discussed. And Alira spoke again. To him. "They won't win," she whispered. "Not unless they understand the Krev don't fear death. They fear memory." Jace didn't know what she meant. Not yet. But as war loomed, the Queen called for him. And this time, her offer wasn't a throne. It was something far more dangerous. "You must go to them. Speak for us. Alone." He stared at her. "You want me to negotiate? You are human. Unreadable to the Krev. Unknown. You might be the only variable they can't calculate." He exhaled slowly. "And if they kill me? Then we die knowing we tried everything." He looked to Alira. She touched his hand. "They will listen to you." He wasn't sure if it was hope or madness. But the Queen's eyes held trust. Real trust. He nodded. And walked into the unknown. The Krev vessel did not glide through space, it carved through it, a gaping wound wrapped in obsidian plating. Jace sat in a transport pod no larger than a coffin, jettisoned toward the monstrosity, with nothing but Alira's whispered words echoing in his mind. They fear memory. He had no idea what that meant. The pod clamped to the Krev hull with a magnetic scream. Lights flickered. Systems cut. No welcoming committee, no weapons raised, just a silence that hummed with predatory intelligence. He stepped out. The corridor wasn't built. It was grown, metal twisted with organic roots pulsing faintly underfoot. No signs. No gravity. No logic. Jace floated forward, using magnetic tethers on his boots. Every step felt like it echoed through a billion minds watching him. Then a voice. No mouth. No face. Just sound. "You are not required." Jace paused. "But I am here. You are irrelevant. I bring memory." That changed something. A door, or something like it, peeled open like a flower. Inside, a chamber of shifting glass and fluid metal. At the center, a being rose, Krev Prime. No face. No limbs. A consciousness contained in impossible symmetry. State your origin. Human. Biological. Flawed. Temporary. Maybe. But we remember. That makes us dangerous. Explain. Jace swallowed. You consume data. Erase it. But memories, they resist. They reshape. You delete erase, but the grief echoes in those left behind. You don't erase us. You multiply us. Silence. Then, images flooded the room, holograms. His childhood. War. Fire. The moment he carried Alira. Her eyes. Emotion is virus. Emotion is survival. It corrodes. It endures star. Krev Prime leaned forward, if such a thing was possible. You are bonded to the Oracle. Yes. Why? Because I chose to be. Choice is inefficient. Jace smiled. And that's why you'll lose. A pulse hit him like a psychic hammer. His memories spilled. He felt them being parsed, dissected, analyzed. Then rejected. Not because they were weak, but because they overwhelmed the system. He fell to his knees, bleeding from his nose. You seek peace. I seek survival. Then deliver a message. What? The oracle's presence disrupts pattern. The child must surrender, or war will escalate. You fear her. We do not fear. We calculate. Same thing. The being vanished. The chamber dissolved. Jace was ejected. Back in space. Cold. Spinning. He awoke on the Queen's cruiser, body shaking. She stood beside him. What did they say? They want Alira. She didn't react. And if we don't comply, they'll burn your world. All of them. Alira entered. No fear in her eyes. Only certainty. I know what to do, she said. She led them to the memory wells, ancient, forbidden places within the palace. Pools of living thought. Places even the Zalari dared not enter. They consume information, she said. But what if we give them something they can't process? Like what? Us. Jace frowned. You're talking about broadcasting memory. Not just memory, she whispered. Emotion. Unfiltered. Our pain. Our love. Our loss. Inject it into the Krev hive. Overload them. They'll adapt. Not if we never stop. The Queen watched her daughter. This would risk everything. But it's the only thing they don't understand. Jace nodded. Then let me lead it. You. They've already tasted my memories. Let them choke on the rest. They gathered volunteers. Warriors. Healers. Artists. Survivors. Anyone who had suffered and survived. Jace trained them not in weapons, but in reliving. In bringing back the fire and holding it close. They called it the flood. When the Krev ships arrived, massive and ready to harvest, Jace stood at the memory conduit. He locked eyes with Alira. Let's show them what a memory can do. He activated the stream. And screamed. His mind tore open. Battlefields. The screams of dying friends. The laughter of children. The first time he held her. Every joy. Every failure. Every heartbreak. All poured into the stars. Across the galaxy, the Krev hesitated. Some stopped. Some twitched. Some shattered. Their programming, designed to filter information like fuel, choked on the flood of meaning. They couldn't separate grief from data, couldn't compute what it meant to feel star. Ships stalled. Crashed. Melted. But others adapted. One aimed for Lysthara. The Queen ordered countermeasures. Too slow. Jace stood again. Bleeding. Barely able to think. He reactivated the stream. Alone. One man. A single conduit. The Krev ship shook. And detonated. Silence followed. Not victory. Just silence. He collapsed. And the stars wept. Jace drifted between consciousness and darkness, his body weightless in a medic stasis pod as Zalari healers worked tirelessly to save him. His neural system had nearly collapsed under the memory flood. Human minds weren't built for that kind of psychic strain. Most wouldn't have survived. He did. 3 days later, he opened his eyes. Alira sat beside him, silent, her small hand wrapped around his fingers. Her skin glowed faintly, and her eyes shimmered with something ancient, like she'd aged in those days. You came back, she whispered. He tried to speak, but only a rasp escaped. The Queen entered then, still regal, still composed, but not untouched. Her armor was scratched, her crown absent, and her eyes rimmed red. She dismissed the healers with a nod and stepped closer. You broke the floodgate alone. He nodded, weakly. The Krev are retreating. Not all are destroyed. But the hive is fractured. Their collective logic has turned on itself. He forced out a breath. It worked. Yes. Silence hung between them before she added, but it came with a price. I figured. Alira's vision changed. He looked at the girl. What do you see now? Hope, she said. But only if you stay. The Queen sat beside him. You're not a soldier anymore. Not just a man. You've become something else. A beacon. He smiled faintly. I just wanted to save a kid. And in doing so, you saved a civilization. Weeks passed. Recovery was slow. But change came faster. The council, once cold and dismissive, began to shift. Protocols were rewritten. Traditions questioned. Zalari scholars began studying empathy as strategy. Memory was no longer a vulnerability. It was seen as their new weapon. And Jace became its first wielder. He wasn't crowned or titled. That wasn't his way. But wherever he walked in the capital, silence followed. Then respect. Then trust. They called him the memory bearer. Alira began speaking in council, her vision steady, her words now channeled through a mind tempered by love, war, and loss. She kept Jace beside her. Always. The queen. She remained a mystery to many. But not to him. They spoke more often. And when the galaxy grew quiet again, when the Krev were driven into the depths beyond the known void, she came to him in private one night, stars framing her face. You could go home. Earth will welcome you now. Hero of two worlds. He shook his head. I already am home. She looked at him with something deeper than affection. Then stay. Not as a guest. Not as guardian. As kin. He took her hand. I've been yours since the day I pulled her out of that rubble. They stood in silence as a new constellation blinked into the sky, stars rearranged by Zalari astronomers to mark the end of the Krev threat. At its center, a glowing cluster named after a single Terran word. Memory. And so the galaxy turned. Not on steel or supremacy, but on the fragile thread of empathy, courage, and choice. Moral ***. Sometimes the greatest power doesn't come from weapons, war, or technology, but from the simple act of seeing another's pain and choosing to stand beside them. In a galaxy of logic and silence, it was a human heart that turned the tide. And for once, the stars remembered.